everyone, it's Carolyn here to share more channeled messages. This time I'm talking with Jennifer again, and we're following along in our conversation on the heels of my most recent video. But we're covering a lot of other ground and how energy and spirit attachments that I talk about in my last video and give you 4 examples of experiences I've had actually speak to something broader, something more than just that individual experience. And what we're going to talk about is how all of these experiences tie to compassion, they tie to unity consciousness, they tie to converging and reclaiming all of our parts, meaning the aspects of us, and how that's happening now in spades. So it's important to really understand that this is a component of this journey that we're on, and it's nothing to be feared or be concerned about or worried. It's a component of the journey, and we want you to understand that. So we're going to talk about her experiences today, and again, similar but not. She's had some very interesting experiences, and we're going to go ahead and talk about that today, and then touch on, as I mentioned, compassion, unity consciousness, multidimensionality, how we're reclaiming all of the aspects of ourselves, converging back into the oneness of who we are individually, how this ties to forgiveness. We're really going to take these experiences of, like I said, of all these other energies swirling around us and reframing it and talking about it very deeply. So you're going to get her perspective and her experiences today. So thank you so much for joining me today. I'm Carolyn Zaiser. I'm a channel, I'm a distance energy healer, and I'm a spiritual awakening mentor. And I offer these videos for your awakening and ascension journey support. So I hope you enjoy this today. And like we always say, we hope you take at least a couple things away for the puzzle of your own journey, because that's what we're doing. We're completing the puzzle of this journey moving forward. It really is. It's about finding all those pieces and saying, oh, I kind of understand now. And then we keep learning as we go along. So thank you so much for joining me here today. Like, share, and subscribe if you will. It'll help me with the YouTube algorithm so that I can actually get more of these messages out to others who might need them. So for those of you who are new, check out below in the description box. It leads you to a link where you're going to get a free video on flow, but it sends you to my email list where you're able to get a channeled message each week from the Light Keepers, who are the group of angelic beings I channel for your ascension and awakening journey. And it supports you on your week forward. So join me there too. And oftentimes that's where I'll have specials and discounts too. So with that, I want to make a couple comments about the solstice, which is tomorrow. This is being filmed on the 20th. And actually that we're in this energy right now, because it's never just a point in time that the energies are here with us. And I just wanted to channel a little bit of information. I've already talked about it in my December energy update, but I wanted to see what they were going to bring through for us real quickly. I will be doing the January 2022 and kind of a New Year little clip update here before the end of the year. But right now we're just going to talk about the solstice and see what they have to say. So anything we want to talk about today? Oh, they just said this is the Great Leap. Okay. Oh, great. Whoa, I have chills. Great leap forward. Okay, that makes sense. It is also that slingshot. Or you might remember, those of you who listened to my December energy update, we talked about the slingshot after we're on that huge wave of energy that started with the eclipse. And we're the surfers, and we're coming across that wave of energy. And then we get slingshotted out. Great leap forward. Okay, that's what that means. Yes, exactly. So can you tell us a little bit more about that? They just said this will change the course of humankind. You are on the precipice of great change, some of which you could not have imagined heretofore. This all comes from you, the individual, who has created anew and reclaimed yourself at the same time. The glory of all you are and evermore. With this, you will see the lighting of the new pathway forward. Your light shines. Oh, your light shines into the great abyss that humankind has found themselves in. Pulling each other to the top of the mountain, you light the way, the great flame of humanity moving forward, marching behind you in a stream of crystalline light, paving the way in these new days to come, where great change is upon you. You're launching forward in ways you may never have imagined, not only as a collective, but most importantly as an individual. For the collective is the response of the individual. What you see manifest out is a response from your own internal journey. For now, only love, kindness, and caring can create in this new world. Okay, so we're going to stop right there real quick, because I could probably keep going on and on. We're going to kind of close with them here real quickly, but what I want to comment on here is these Aquarian Age energies that we're in now. Okay, they just talked about a cosmic wormhole that we're going through. I might have mentioned this last time. We're in this wave of this such as massive energies, and most of you have been able to feel this, right? But we're in the Aquarian Age energies that can't stand for anything but love, caring, and kindness. And so that's, and compassion and unconditional love and all of that. And that's what we're moving into. So what we're seeing is anything that doesn't exist like that currently is being broken down. And you see it. Think big picture. Look at the collective. Look at what's going on. So we are now seeing a huge shift and change. And we start with ourselves individually. And this is the slingshot out, because we have done work. We're continuing to do work. But we are in this energetic time now that is, okay, they just said advancing us. See, in ways that we've not been advanced before. And that's why we're feeling these energies. So what we're finding is inside ourselves, we're making different decisions. We're making different choices. You see it all over, whether people are consciously awakening or not. They're making choices about jobs they have. The energy no longer serves them. So many people are making different choices. They're making different choices all over the map. And this is where it all begins. They can't live in those lower vibrations, those lower energies anymore as they start to wake up. And you're seeing it in spades. So we are launching off forward, great change in humankind, ready to come our way. Okay, they just said again, okay, so they just said, seek within, not without. They really want us to stay within. And that doesn't mean we don't go out and we're not with other people. Physically, I don't mean that. But what it does mean is everything that we do is centered from inside of ourselves. How we represent ourselves, how we speak about ourselves, how we have conversation. Where's it coming from? Is it coming from the heart space? Wow, they said, oh, they just said start practicing now. What a better time than to practice now. Yep. Speaking from the heart space. Let your heart open in its fullness to all those in humankind. Let your love spread and shine. For you're the greatest of the divine light that is here to help others like their own flame. Moving forward as the great collective that you are in this time that has not been seen. Ooh, and will not be heretofore. Right, because they said this is the great launching off. Oh my gosh, I think we've kind of known this, but I have so many chills right now. I'm just going to send you on over to Jennifer's and my conversation. I hope you take something away from it. And I hope a little bit on the solstice was useful, because this is now where we're headed. All right. Enjoy the solstice tomorrow. Enjoy this video. And I will see you at the end of it for a quick wrap up.
Well, I think I wanted to just address what you just said, because it is so important to understand this. And I wanted to just express, maybe openly, I've told you this before, that when I was having so much of my difficulty, I was trying to find somebody to talk to about it. Mm-hmm. And I went through multiple different mentors before I found you. And as soon as I heard you talking, I said, she's going to get this. And the reason, what I was saying, like what you were saying earlier, is no, it's not that you had it's all perfect, signed, sealed, and delivered. And the fact that any kind of mentor, I feel, is their state of mind, their presence, and their ability to be open-minded, and process information in a thoughtful way where new things can come to them. And they're not, a lot of times you'll find people that are very much caught up in their own ego and want to regurgitate the new age. I call it the new age 10 commandments, right? Well, it's because you brought it to, these things that they, and that's not going to work in every situation, because that's not, everybody is unique. Their journeys are very different. Yours is very different. Mine is very unique as well. So I love that you said that, because you are going through the process. You're doing this too, but you have the right state to help other people go through theirs. And that is invaluable, in my opinion.
Thank you.
So,
and I think it is interesting you mentioned that, because like you said, the kind of the new age, I don't want to say rules or guidelines, right? What I find is that kind of floats across everybody, but their experience is completely different within that part of the process.
Yes.
And it's all over the map, and you might not even realize, oh, that is part of this. And I think it's even more expansive than what we've
it's much more expansive. And that's what I was saying. So a lot of times we get out of a box just to put ourselves in just a little bit bigger box. And that's what a lot of times what's going on in the communities, because okay, now I'm this, I'm going to put my shingle out, I'm calling myself this, and I must be, and you kind of put yourself back in, out of one rut right into another, and don't allow yourself to be that expansive being.
Yes, exactly.
And there's so many things. I mean, I'm the walking contradiction to every universal law that I've been told, right?
Right.
So I know that you can't just hammer somebody with all of these, oh, it's this because of that. You need to listen and understand and get into the and you've been amazing at that. So I think that that's, and you're doing it while you're doing your own work, which is
it's interesting too, because what they're indicating to me is that, and we can't even wrap our minds around this. They said anything is possible, more than you can even imagine, in this awakening journey. Like anything you could even possibly envision can be, because of course that's how this all works, right? Like we manifest. So but they're indicating that the boxes that we put ourselves in, there never should be a box, basically. Right. We should just include everything. We just include everything, and then whatever works for us in our journey or shows up for us in our journey, then hopefully we have some kind of understanding or learning or experience to know how to manage through it. Does that make sense?
Yes. And let me tell you too, there's some of us, come to find out, that are here specifically to deconstruct anything that even resembles a box.
Yes.
So some box with some set of rules comes flying towards you, you knock it out of the park in pieces. So your life doesn't look like anything that is a construct.
Yep. I just heard blow open the doors. Blow open the doors.
So having somebody regurgitate these laws to you as trying to help you understand what's happening is not beneficial for those particular individuals, me being one of them. So I can say that I've learned also through this myself, and now how I would address another person who's seeking help, because I know now.
Since we're kind of a bit on this topic, do you want to cover, similar to my last video on, and of course I entitled it energy, what I call it, spirit and energy attachment or something. And
yes,
what I was going to say, it's just for frame of reference for people that might be watching this, is maybe giving people the experience, a bit of the experience you've had and how you managed through having that happen to you, because yours is different. Everybody's is different, and some people may not have this happen, but I think the vast majority of people are going to experience something, whether they even recognize it or not. And I think your experience would be helpful. So
they are, and it's ramping up right now. So what I want to do, I want to briefly explain what I've learned since, and then I want to tell you about mine. Is that okay if we do it in that order?
Absolutely, because I think it's wonderful for people to know, they've got my message, and now you and I have been doing videos. It's fantastic for you to be able to share your very unique circumstances.
So we've had, I've had so much information coming to me through this process about convergence, things coming together, all of these lines coming into the center, coming into the one. They keep saying coming back to the one. And so in recently, more so than ever, I've started to realize more and more how complex that is.
Mhm.
So you think about yourself just as an individual, and many of us know that we've had previous lives or other lives in other eras, other planets. Even the life as who we identify as this time has multiple lines running. There's more than one of us doing this. There's many of them, and there's many probabilities within each one of those lines. So there are many, many, many timelines running just from this particular aspect, okay? So, and you have many aspects as well, you're a multidimensional being. So when you start to pick up on how large your being is, how and your being can handle these things. You can handle having these multiple things running in multiple systems, and you're interacting with yourself even in a lot of this stuff. Most of it, ultimately we are all one anyway. So you're interacting with yourself. So that being said, when we are, and in most of this areas, time is really not an element other than in our mind. So you can be overlapping. Say now I'm 47 years old, and I can be overlapping maybe something that happened to me when I was 13.
Yes.
And be experiencing it at the same time, overlapped with this.
Yep. And you know what? That's that convergence idea of the, because what they keep showing me is all this out here, meaning all those past lives. And this is a huge part of Ascension, by the way, is what they're saying to me. They said you ascend with all your parts. This is what they're saying, with all your parts. So what we're in now, and I know you're going to keep going here, but I just want to give you what they're showing me, is all these parts are coming back in, and it doesn't matter, even in this incarnation, what age you were, it's all converging inside of you to be that oneness. And that's why our past lives are showing up. So anyway, keep going.
So think about your life, your memory of your life. So even in your own memory of your life, the one that you were predominantly kind of resonating in, or you have the memory of, so that you're holding, there were many versions of you at that age doing all kinds of things at all ages, at all times. So there are things that other versions or probabilities of you may have experienced that aren't really highlighted in your mind. So there might have been a you that was not as health conscious. There might have been a you that hooked into addiction. There might have been a you that did all their traumatic events happen to. So at different ages, and now we're kind of pulling all of this in for the knowledge and experience. We're kind of pulling it all back to the one. So if you think about that, some of the there might be things coming to you that you're like, this does not match my life, right? Now, I had a lot of this. I've been, very health conscious and taking, especially with having an autistic son. I had all this stuff. I was taking very good care of my body. Was very healthy eating, all of these things, medically minded. And I experienced somebody who felt like they did not take care of their body one day of their life.
Yeah.
And I thought, what is this? This is definitely not me, right?
Yes.
So what I've come to realize, and then, as you go through your life, you meet other people. You may have, you may be more open to entity attachment. You may be more open to blending or, allowing certain energies to, depending on what was going on in that particular one's life. So with that being said, I'm not saying that it isn't sometimes off-putting or annoying, but what I have found now that has helped me more than ever is remembering that it's just an understanding of the experience that they had and meeting it headlong with massive doses of compassion seems to be the neutralizing, balancing, and healing effect that's needed.
Yeah, exactly. Now, it's compassion.
Now, going through the process of it can be very harsh. So I'll talk about one that I had that was very, very extreme.
Yes. And can I say something before you get started?
Sure.
So what they said to me as you were talking, and this may seem obvious, but I think it's envisioning this is important. the oneness of us, what we're doing in the collective now, the collective consciousness it's a unity. We're moving to unity consciousness, right? The oneness. Well, guess what? Oh gosh, I have chills. We have to come into the oneness within ourselves first. So that's why we're having the convergence of all of our aspects, whatever you want to define as an aspect, all parts of us to come back into the oneness of us, which then allow us to converge in then with the whole of the collective. Does that resonate?
Yes, it does. Absolutely.
So you go ahead.
So they're groups within groups within groups, but really ultimately they're one. Yes. So we're shoring all of this back in, we're shoring all of it back into one. But, now that being said, what I said earlier about having compassion, I also have to have compassion with this girl because totally. I'm the one doing this. So I'm not saying, oh, I just need to meet all of this with compassion. That's what seems to have worked for me now. And what I'm starting to understand that helps me and the energy that I'm being interplaying with. But that's not to say that now I'm not free to have my own feelings about it. So even this girl can be annoyed with the feeling. I feel like it's unfair sometimes that I'm having to do that when my life, I did something a certain way and I was very maybe disciplined in one way, and I'm being met with this energy that, apparently threw that right out the window. And then this other consequence happened, and now I'm holding the consequence. So even while these things are happening, understanding that these things are going to be coming to you, I'm not saying that you have to just take it and be a saint about it either, because this girl is having to integrate too. So while these things are happening to me, I am managing them the way that I can, but I'm not saying that I have to just, I can't have feelings about it too, because I can. Sometimes it's very annoying for me. Sometimes I feel like I don't want to have to put up with it. I feel like they should have done their part a little better before bringing it, this kind of thing. So,
you know what they're saying to me? That's actually a critical part of the journey, is that you have to feel it and recognize it and then intellectualize it. So that actually processes it as you're, like you just said, feeling it, right?
Mm-hmm. And it brings up some judgment for me, even though I have the understanding, this is a part of me I'm feeling a part of me in this experience. I have the dominating resonance of my memory as my life. So if it's something that is so far outside of something that would be in this girl's nature, sometimes I can get annoyed with it, like almost judging the energy, like, how did you do? You're kind of like dumping this in my lap. What happened here? So I'm not saying that you have to be perfect about it, because I'm certainly far from it. But what I've started to realize is, as these energies are coming in and I'm feeling them, if I try to set myself in a place of understanding what happened to you, let me understand you, I feel you, I'm acknowledging that you're there because I can feel you. And this is I'm feeling, sometimes I'll just identify what it is. And it tends to integrate and process much quicker this way than resisting it completely, right?
Yes, exactly.
Now, that being said,
and now that's the aspect that's when there are aspects of you you're talking about, correct?
Yes, and even yes.
I mean, because this is not. I just want to be clear. We're not talking about a energy attachment to you that doesn't belong with you. We're talking about aspects of you right now that may be joining you, correct?
Right, but what I've yes, this is something that this kind of expanded my view of everything too.
Okay.
So I kind of gave that prerequisite of, I don't have to be thrilled that it's going on purpose, because the more expansive I get, the more I realize all of it is attached to me in one way or another, even if it's something. Now, that doesn't mean I have to put up with it either. That means some of it is like, this is too much. My team's going to run this, run interference, because that's not going to happen. But at the end of the day, even that energy is connected to me too.
Yep, I get exactly what you're saying. It's the oneness. It goes back to that oneness. And so what they're giving me the recognition of it. So in other words, you don't have to accept it, but
Yeah.
there's something powerful about the recognition of it, particularly like in how you just said you do that more expansive view, the more unity.
It's not, and it's not easy, because some of these are very, very,
well, and you've had
very
extreme examples. If you think mine are, I look at mine, I'm like, well, you kind of seem a little minor compared to yours, but seriously, we have our own experiences, right?
Yes, and that's why I'm saying you always care for your being. You always care for the one you're doing a lot of this work, but it doesn't mean that, oh, well, now that I understand what's going on here, I have to just take it. That's not true either. Right. But it is when you start really getting into the oneness, into unity consciousness, and really realizing how one all of us really are, it does tend to make it a little easier, but it doesn't mean you have to put up with it. You've got to support and use it. Say, I'm not, I don't want to deal with that. Okay, but so for instance, for myself, I've had several instances. One of the most extreme was and here I am sitting at home with my two kids, my husband's watching TV. And I had the most intense, I don't even know how to call it, emotion. It was more than another person. It felt like a massive being, a huge, maybe collective energy come over me that was homicidal rage with suicidal thoughts. Mm-hmm. So it was almost like just on repeat visuals and impulses to kill somebody else or myself. And it was so extreme that it was almost like it was being just like pumped into me. Mm-hmm. Right.
Yep.
And I thought, oh my God, what is this? And I got up and I walked out of the room because I thought, I don't know what is this? My own mom instinct made me stand up and get away from my children. Mm-hmm. That's how intense it was.
And let me just add here real quick. That is very similar to what they've showed me how this works, where I say, my human's here. My human's still here. My understanding, like your mom leaving the room, but there's all this other stuff coming in. So you don't lose yourself. You kind of feel like you're going to, but the human's doing this thing of awareness, and this thing is going on.
That's right. So it's not an overtake, but it's very much there. It would be almost as if somebody else walked into the room this way. Your first instinct would be to get them away from your kids, right? It would be like another person. So I felt that it was the intensity of not just witnessing it, it was experiencing how that would feel, with Jennifer fully present, going, oh my goodness, right? So I eventually, I came into my own room and I thought, okay, until I figure out what this is, I need to get away from it. I actually went into my closet and started putting a bag together. It was so extreme, and I'm crying because it's so strong and it was so intense and repetitive that I thought, okay, I need to do this. I couldn't pack. It was too much. So I sat down on the floor of my closet, shut the door, and I was like in a ball, basically crying while I'm experiencing this feeling. And I found myself at some point, I had kind of hugged my own knees and I was rocking, right? And I was talking to this energy like it was somebody else. And I was saying, oh my God, what happened to you? What happened to you? And while I was experiencing, because I knew, like I said, I knew it wasn't me.
Right.
But my goodness, it was so, it was very sad, even though it was like raging, this violent kind of energy. It was very sad in the sense that you thought, I don't wish this upon anybody. I don't care who they are, right?
Exactly. It really gives you empathy.
Yes.
It really puts you in that mindset. And that's what happened to me with the two major ones that I had and yours got combined into one incident, which was the suicidal tendencies from a soul, and then the the murder part, the homicide part. So absolutely. And I was like, oh my gosh, then you can't not know now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What people must feel like in some way.
And I thought about this some of these really wild things that happen where someone will go on this crazy killing spree, and they'll ask the neighbors and the family, and they're like, we don't know, he never acted like this. I kind of thought, like, does this happen to some people and they don't have the wherewithal to try to handle
I
and
thought the
realize
same thing.
that's not me,
That's exactly where I was too.
because it comes out of the blue. It's completely out of your nature. It has absolutely nothing to do with your life or your upbringing or your nurture or your nature. Nothing. It's nothing to do with that matches this person. But it came in, and it came in so strong that was my, so I, in that way, that was how I handled it at that time. But I also said, I never want to experience that again. Right.
So I'm just curious, how did you, during the moment when you were balled up and you were crying, how were you able to end the scenario, the situation, or clear it, or however you want to explain that? Did it just dissipate, or tell me about that?
It dissipated from what I was doing, but it wasn't a short thing. I was in there for a while, and I actually I was exhausted when it dissipated enough that I actually laid down on the floor in my closet and went to sleep. So it was like what I'm saying, it was like violent imagery running through my mind about killing another person or killing yourself.
Exactly.
Right. And it was just like almost just playing. And it wasn't really something that I was familiar with, or scenes that I had seen anywhere, like on a movie or anything. It was all like the memories, or it's something of whatever being I was holding. Right.
Yes. Until you experience it, it's hard to explain. It really is.
It's really something that it's unbelievable. So I felt like this after even as upset as I was that it was even occurring, or as much as I felt like, why is this happening to me? How did I do this? And of course, I went through all kinds of analyzing. Did I bring this to myself? What is this? And I started now, and as I've gone through, and there's been time where I've really now begun to understand it a little bit better, where it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with, you don't want to guilt yourself over it. You don't want to, I was not happy that it happened. I thought it was unfair. Why is this happening to me? But now I realize, just in the process of it, as it's never returned. And I believe that whatever happened that day, just the idea that I acknowledged, not that I couldn't have felt it even if I didn't want to, I acknowledge, I feel you. And I'm sorry that you feel like this. This is terrible. What happened to you? This, and it dissipated, and it's never returned.
Exactly.
But yes, it felt very much like somebody came to visit because they needed help. So honestly, at this point, that's what I think happened. And it was a huge energy. And again, I said, it was so much more intense than like a human, like an individual human would have felt. I think it was a massive, like, collective energy that needed to be healed, and it was enormous. So I think these are some of the energies that send maybe some of us to the emergency room sometimes, because they're so overwhelming. We think, okay, something's got to be wrong, right?
That was me.
Yes.
That was me in April, when absolutely emergency room. And I think I told you the bill was $5,555. I mean, what are the chances of that? Isn't that nuts? Like, they're trying to say to me, okay, this was kind of meant to happen.
What is 5 is like, what is the number of change?
Yes.
Is it not?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I thought.
So, the other thing I will say, in my video, identified 4 experiences, different defined experiences that I had, but there are others, right? That's not all inclusive. The one you're talking about is not one that I actually discussed, but it's processing a collective
Yes.
energy, a collective experience. And there are individuals, like you just said, that
Mhm.
are, oh, I have chills, that process for the collective. Now, some people know this, okay? They,
Yeah.
on their journey, they end up figuring this out and realizing it. But yes, absolutely doing that.
Yeah. And it took me a little while of just being in complete rejection and resistance to it because of the level of extremeness before I came to, with your help, actually started to realize that that is what I'm doing. Right. So I think that, we've just talked about a highly emotional, extremely highly charged situation. I've also had these things on a physical level that are incredibly unbelievable, that that have washed through me on a physical layer, on a physical level as well. So I think that it is so much in our nature to throw up resistance
Mhm.
in defense of ourselves, in preservation of ourselves, when some of this energy comes through us. It's completely understandable, completely. But if we can try, at least for me, this has worked when I now have an understanding and I try to remember just how diverse, multifaceted, multi-leveled, multidimensional my being is. And I don't necessarily say that I, Jennifer, have to take personal responsibility for everything that they've done. I don't feel that way either. But I just have the knowing, the understanding, and the knowingness that there is a massive me. And right now, that's trying to find a way to integrate so
Yes.
that we can better ourselves and move up.
That's what it's
Okay.
about right now, individually integrating
Mhm.
all of our parts. They keep calling them
Yeah.
parts, but it's true.
Mhm.
All of our aspects, all of our parts, all of our experiences. And yes, absolutely.
Mhm.
This is okay. So they're indicating, oh, they just said everyone's going through this each to their own right now. And of course, there's not, we have great awareness because of where we're at with in our journey, right? But there's so
Mhm.
many that don't have any awareness of this. And,
Yeah.
but it's still happening is my point, right?
Yeah. And there is some that each to their own, but we are a collective, we are
Yes.
one. So
Yes.
we say that everybody's doing their own work, but there are collective groups doing it. So that is, that each to their own can work to a point, but we all came from the same energy at one level, right?
Exactly, like we are talking
Or,
about earlier, but they're each going to have their own. I guess my point is the human is going to have their own
Mhm.
experience within that,
Yes,
what they're
sure.
indicating. And what I have found too is, I think, well, let me reframe that. So what happens, I've noticed for myself in clearing certain past lives and things like this, a lot of these will come in on, like, you wake up in the morning and I'm just, you may just feel different. You may feel off and it may
Yes.
just not feel like you. And like, where'd that come from? You're probably during this time processing something, some aspect of you, potentially some collective, if you're a collective clear.
Yes.
This happens readily. And oftentimes it goes away just like that too.
Yes.
So your
I
process
was
is fast.
Yeah, I was saying this very thing to my daughter in the car on the way to school this morning, Carolyn. This is so funny. That I don't even know how it came up, but I'm lucky. I can have these conversations with my kids and they totally get it, right?
Mhm.
Um, they're the ones who woke me up, frankly. So, but I was saying to her, some days there's so many kind of timelines running, and you go in and out of these many, many times. Like, it's almost like every moment is a different frame. They don't necessarily even belong to one timeline. You go through frames, there's so many, right? So you say you wake up one morning and you feel a little bit different. That might be just another one of the multiple timelines that you're managing
Mhm.
in this moment as you're doing. You're a master coordinator, weaver,
Yeah.
right? We're very good at this. This is what our being is, very good. But as we start to notice these things in our experience, I'm a little off today, or I feel a little this or a little that, you might just be navigating through these different lines, right? These different, so even that being said, you might be navigating through lines, but they might not all be now, you know,
No,
this
right.
time period.
Absolutely.
There might be some thrown in from back here or back there, you
Totally.
know. I was even making a joke with my husband. I've had, you know, we've talked about this too, that I've had some of these like phantom pregnancy things. And I said, you know, I was pregnant with twins for, you know, my twins, and it was not an easy pregnancy. I had 90 days on my back in the hospital to keep me from going into labor. And they were still 7 weeks premature. So it wasn't an easy time for me. And I'm thinking, you know, chances are highly likely that I had some soul trauma, you know, going on at that time. And it might very well be that I'm processing that now. And that's why I'm kind of feeling me as I was pregnant with my twins.
Oh, yeah.
Now, kind of feeling this kind of, where is this pregnancy feeling that I have coming from? Because I know I'm not pregnant. But I thought, you know what? I was pregnant, and it wasn't a really, it was kind of a stressful time.
Yeah.
You know, I might be processing that now and feeling kind of that general feeling in this body now while I'm processing her trauma.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
so this goes to something else. I'm just to add to what you're saying, and I don't want to necessarily get off on this topic, but this is also happening with karma, as far as, like, in other words, if you create something in this lifetime, you're clearing it now in this lifetime, is what I'm getting. Oh,
It's
wow,
the
I have
balance.
so many chills because we're in
Yes.
that time now where we can't create more. So what? So that thing that you've done or that you need to do, it's going to be taken care of in this lifetime, is what I have been getting. So that's kind of to your point, but in a
It
different
is.
way.
No, you're absolutely right. And karma, you know, we think about karma and dharma as being two different, some of it has a negative connotation, but really, if you kind of peel back all of the beliefs and everything placed on karma really just is a balancing.
Yes.
So you can balance an energy back to a zero point.
Yes.
So it can almost be sealed and healed and put into your akash almost. You see what I'm saying? It can't kind of like be out there all afraid. A balancing of a lot of this of energy is not necessarily to do with the bad things that I've done that I need to repay. It's not so much that as a balance, the equal and opposite energy to bring it back into some form of, okay, balance, heal to completion, and allow it to go into akash, right?
Yes.
It's just a way to, it's almost an organizational tool more than it is a right or wrong or punishment or reward system. It's not that at all.
No.
It's a balancing of energy.
Exactly. That's what they always talk about. And that's what we're doing right now in the collective, with the seeing all the extreme happening and then all of the light happening. And again, it's this balancing out, but yes, exactly. So,
yeah. So I think that I like that you said that too, because I feel like, and I don't necessarily always know exactly what I'm balancing, but you know, there might have been a lot of unresolved or suppressed anxiety, sadness, trauma in, let's say, my 3 months in the hospital. Here I'm having twins. I should be happy, right? And I'm in the hospital. I'm miserable, right? I'm sad. I'm scared. I'm going to lose my kids. You know, I'm not going to be able to make it. So I had a lot of emotion pumping at that time while I was putting on the face of being happy to being, you know, having these. So I thought, okay, there's a lot we're in that to unpack there. And I might be doing that at this moment to balance that out. So I thought, you know, that might be this whole issue that I keep holding this.
oh yeah,
you know,
I think it is. Absolutely.
And it might be the dream of having the perfect pregnancy, the happy, perfect pregnancy that I didn't get. Right.
I just heard processing the trauma.
Yeah. And processing the grief that it didn't.
That's what I mean.
Play out how I pictured it. Right.
Exactly.
It didn't play out like this perfect, little, happy, you know, healthy, you know, wonderful, take all the picture pregnancy. You know what I'm saying?
The stories, the stories
we tell
ourselves.
In the hospital with the IV drips and on my back and upside down, hoping that I'm, you know, it was not the dream, right? So, so I think that is playing out in so many different ways. And so I've tried to utilize this understanding some of these other energies that maybe not be so familiar to me. It's easy for me to have compassion for my pregnant self because I had the experience, but there's all these other feelings that are coming in that I don't really recognize that. And sometimes I'm like, I don't want to deal with you,
Right.
I didn't necessarily, but if at some point, if it comes back through, and I'm noticing a lot of the stuff is coming through in dream state for me, where I have an opportunity to allow the understanding of what is going on with that other energy, it dissipates very quickly and it's allowed to heal and to integrate very, very quickly.
Very
But
quickly. Mm-hmm.
there's so much. We are doing massive heavy lifting right now. And so some of these very, very heavy energies are coming through, in multiple ways. For me, like I said, it's been even physically coming through. Like I felt insane physical things going on that I thought I recognize what this must be, even though I can't believe that I'm feeling it. Right. So there's some of that even rolling through too. So in that case, so some of this stuff I say for my team, I say, this is too much. I don't want to feel this in my body. Got it. Let's not allow that to come through. So I can deal with it myself, but I'm trying my best to be in that state of empathy and sympathy, or more not sympathy, but more of a compassionate state. Like I see you had this experience and I'm feeling it, that doesn't feel good.
Right.
And it's all just a small amount of validation and compassion. And that seems to be the alchemical, if you want to call it, magic potion.
You know why? Because it's love. It's based in love.
Yep,
Compassion
right.
is based in love. That's the
Right.
difference. And,
That's right.
when we think about it, I don't know why this feels like a revelation to me right now, but, they're like, well, that's love. That's love. Because when you exude love to something, then it softens.
Yes.
It softens.
That's right. That's right.
And it's recognized.
Validation. It's even the ones who are like have played the roles of very dark, deep, dark, the level of rejection, that it's almost just a validation. Is you don't have to really necessarily be like happy about the whole situation, but it's almost like you just almost have to just validate it. I see you. Yeah, I see you.
Well, and
right?
I think, yes, and I think my experience with that, when I had the Chaco Canyon experience, it was a past life, but I was able to have, honestly, I spent a lot of time with that past life after the trip in the following week to come, in just going, oh my gosh, how did I get to that point? And then having compassion for myself, even though I started what happened there, having compassion for myself and how that actually occurred and the feelings that were rolling through. And then what I was able to do is also feel the feelings of what happened, the aftermath, right?
Yeah. Yes.
But they just said to me, when you came to, meaning, when you figured out what you'd done, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But there was this growing compassion of that past life, regardless of what had actually been the outcome of that.
Yes.
And so, I mean,
but even with what we were just talking about, you felt and saw very similar almost to what I explained that came through me, where it was just this drive to do something that is totally outside of at least Carolyn's nature. It may have been totally outside of the nature of the being that you were then, and you had this thing come through you the same way as what we're talking about now.
Exactly.
So in that sense, you start understanding, okay, some of this stuff can happen in a really interesting way.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And it allows you to have more of even a complex, compassionate state for beings, right? It made this experience of mine, believe it or not, I had a new level of understanding and compassion for some of these random shooting people.
Exactly.
I thought, hold on a minute. If that can come over somebody at that level of extreme, like it did me, now I want to believe that I had enough wherewithal that I never probably would have done that. But I'm also awake and aware and tapped into other things too. So I have that going for me. But it made me feel like some of these high school kids that do this stuff sometimes, or some of these people that just lose it and go do something crazy, it gave me a level of compassion for even that.
Yes, I
Where
agree
I'd
with you.
never, before that happened to me, I never would have believed I would have. I would have just thought, no, that's absolutely wrong. And, I would have been so judgmental. I still believe that it's not the right thing to do, but
Sure,
it gave me a
exactly.
different view, a different perspective
Perspective.
of some of the stuff that can be possible to somebody who is completely well-natured, and this can come over somebody in this level of intensity.
Yes.
So there are a lot of layers of this going on
Oh,
too.
there are.
That may have been, even with you in that experience in that lifetime, we don't know that your nature was like that whole lifetime. It may have been
Exactly.
something like a ritualistic, something that came over you as a group even.
Yes, that's what
Right.
I had gathered in that situation had happened. I don't think I included that in the video, but afterwards, well, I started to get more understanding of it. It was ritualized and it was a ceremony, and they just said it ran off the rails. And there was also a drug involved, like I don't say peyote, but a kind of a peyote kind of thing. So
That can just open a door to another energy too.
exactly,
So,
exactly.
here you look at these things, there's so much complexity, there's so much that we don't understand here, even psychologically, energetically, even like energetic overlays, things that can happen to our individual being, that is not known or understood at all.
Mhm.
It starts to open you up to different layers of compassion.
Yes.
And I think that is going to be, and probably has always been, the healing force, for all of this.
I agree. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Well, this is such a fascinating conversation. I'm so glad we're having this kind of on the heels of mine, because I think it's a super important topic for people, particularly now. And I think too, as people look back, what they're going to be able to, at least I can do this a bit, is look back and go, oh my gosh, that experience that I didn't understand, that kind of traumatized me, couldn't figure out why this happened to me. More information, now that they have this, more information may come in for them, because I think it is about also trying to be able to understand this as we go through the awakening journey, and having frame of reference for it as well. So
Yeah.
hopefully
Yes.
this opens doors for people to have their own understanding of what has
Yes.
occurred for them.
Mhm. I
Yeah.
think it opens doors for self-forgiveness first and foremost. But, it does allow for a certain level of forgiveness. And
Right.
really, a lot of times, I think of forgiveness as you're giving somebody a free pass. It has I think forgiveness really has more to do with you than it has to do with the other person,
It does.
frankly.
Yeah, it doesn't mean
Uh,
you condone their behavior.
no.
It's
Mm-mm.
it's that you're letting go of what
Of that
they
thing.
did to you as such.
Yes. It's the almost like the knife that you stuck in yourself when you saw what they did and it bothered you to that level, right?
Yes.
Almost like pulling the knife out of yourself to let that go. It really has very little to do with them. It's
Mhm.
more about you, and it's allowing these things to come out of you where, you can flow more freely without that resistance of like, oh, that harsh, feeling of, um, it's really like putting a block in yourself. I don't know how else to
Yes.
explain it, but
Well,
when you
and in
hold a
fact,
grudge or judgment of somebody else,
yep.
it affects you
Right.
much more than it affects them, you know?
And the forgiveness piece is huge. And in fact, there's a beautiful channel that the Light Keepers brought forth about forgiveness. They did a few of them actually. And I might, when I do my wrap up at the end of this, I
Okay.
might find
Okay.
that and read it. But what they use as the metaphor is you actually create your own prison cell when
Yeah.
you have unforgiveness in your heart. And what it is you're actually the one that has the key to your own jail
Yes.
cell.
Yes.
And yes, and to that point we made, it's not about saying, oh, well, I condone their actions. It's about letting yourself out of the jail that you've made by
Yes. Mhm.
holding on to what was done to you.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily, like I said, it's not a condoning, because some people say if I forgive them,
Right,
then it's okay.
right.
Well, that's just really not about that so
No.
much. It's about allowing, allowing yourself to be free of
Yes,
it.
yes.
Uh, and so, that's not necessarily, we look at it in such different ways about crime and punishment, and, getting justice. I look at justice a little bit differently. I started to, justice is kind of an important thing for me too, but I look at it in more of a sense of, you know how the justice is blind, it's a balance. Okay. I look at it like that's a very, very good analogy, or a very good representation of justice. Blindness allows for no judgment. Scales allow for balance.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm getting some information. Keep going. Go ahead.
So justice has very little to do with judgment.
Yeah.
It has to do with balance.
Balance. And they're talking about this right now. They're saying, actually, unbeknownst to humankind, they're saying the justice system, when it works, is about balancing your karma in your current incarnation. Does that make sense?
Well, you know, it does. It does. It's a ability to utilize. Okay, so like justness, I look at justice more so than like for punishment, or for, it's not so much that as it is integration. Justice is justness, justifying, integrating. So I look at it like justice and integrity, justness and integration. So it's like those words, but in a different way. It's not, it's more of like to justify, to like you would like reconcile, okay, to justify, to align, to through integrity or integration. Integrity and integration are somewhat similar to me now too. So I look at it like that, like this is all in, we're balancing so much.
Yes, that's the name of the game. They just said it is balance.
Yes. And that goes back to that, what you read the other day about the middle path.
Yes, exactly.
The middle path is balance.
Yep. Wow.
You know, so it feels like now, you know, and you know, I don't like to downplay, because I've had some very, very extreme, very upsetting things where so I don't want to invalidate my human experience, but because of those experiences, it's led me to the understanding that I have now.
Yes.
So I don't expect anybody to be like Superman or walk on water over this whole issue. Like nothing should bother you, right?
Right.
So, but it can lead you to a higher understanding and a level of perspective where you really start to feel, and you start to feel the true meaning of oneness.
Yeah.
And having the true understanding is starting to bring in the concept of one.
Yes.
And it changes the way you view other people. It changes the way you see people as not as separate from you.
Yeah. And you know what they're saying? Yeah. They're actually saying to me, in this conversation, you can bring in the idea of, and this is what actually helps us through this part of the journey, is being the observer to this. Because think about this, all these things that are occurring for us as we're integrating into our oneness, not getting fully wrapped up in the emotion of what is occurring, but going, okay, hold on, like the skilled effort of being able to look at the thing that's happening and be able to stand back just far enough to not get sucked in. Does that make sense? As this is all happening to us, to be able to
and still observe you too. Don't
Yes.
knock yourself out of the picture either. You can still step back. Like sometimes you talk to yourself, right? When you say, okay, settle down, don't let yourself get upset about this. Or, you know, you talk to yourself. It's self-talk. It's that slight separation of moving back and giving yourself a little bit of room to have your emotions, but you're watching you do it, like almost like you're observing yourself.
Exactly. And it's
So
a very, it's very helpful. Yep. It's very helpful. And they're talking about it being able to process it more fully, because you're not pulled into it's hard to explain until you actually have the experience of being the observer. And it's not, it's a learned process, but, and then you're able to actually they just have more frame of reference for what's going on because you're not involved in the emotional component of it so much like we would
Yes.
normally be.
And it's really interesting too, because I stopped judging myself. For instance, I'll give you an example. When I was really upset about a situation and I was angry and I was like almost like cussing the other person out, I was by myself, but I was having that, like, I am so upset about what you did and I'm having this, and my observer is watching me have this and knowing. But instead of saying, okay, you got it all wrong, we're all one, and I'm not, I sat back, and for some reason, I sat back and I said, let it fly.
Mhm.
Let it fly. This trauma has to get out of you one way or another. You cuss there as long as you need to until you don't feel like you need to do it anymore. Go for it.
Mhm.
And so I started actually almost allowing things that before I would have guilted myself as being wrong. And when I was able to step back into my observer, I didn't do that remorse, guilt myself for
No.
having a blow up. I was actually able to see that for what it is too.
Yes.
And that was an expelling trauma.
Mhm.
And it was a process that it was happening to as well. And I said, you let it fly. Don't guilt yourself into any of that. If you feel like you need to do it, it's got to get out of you one way or another. Go for it.
Yep, because otherwise you're going to do it later. So it might as well happen now.
Well, what, let's, stuff that so it can come up, in another way. Forget it. No.
Right.
So the guilt of that even left too. So here I am doing, but I'm starting to balance these things in a very different way. Like knowing what's really going on is not that it completely stops happening or that you invalidate your human experience. You actually incorporate the
Yes.
observer into it. You give yourself even more love, more acceptance,
Mhm.
more leeway to process when you start understanding some of the stuff that you're doing, how you're doing it, and that there is no guilt or judgment of yourself either, right?
Exactly.
So
That's
it
why
does.
that observer is so important. Yep.
Yeah, it is. It's very important.
Okay, that's what we've got for you today. I hope you've taken something away from it. And as always, I'm so happy you were here. As we enter into the end of this year, one that was just power packed with change collectively and most importantly, individually, because that's how we're going to create this new, beautiful world that we're going to be living in. So remember, stay centered, come from your heart space in everything you do, and you'll be able to share your light in ways that you never imagined moving forward. Thank you so much for joining me, and check out purplerainhealing.com for all of my services. I'll see you in the next video.